Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode number 76 of Coffee Time. I am your host, Byron, alongside me via StreamYard and live on YouTube and live on Anchor, available on all podcasts, Spotify, Google, iTunes, you name it. The next day is former NFL offensive lineman, Daryn Colledge. Am I saying that correct?
Yeah, sounds right. Spelled wrong, but sounds right.
Perfect. Yeah, it's spelled wrong, but hey, if that's how I pronounced it correctly, hey, I'm glad I did.
You're on it, man. Most people can't get it right, so don't even worry about it. That's perfect.
Perfect. So let's get started. I want to ask you. It looks like I want to start current. Actually, unfortunately, your Packers that you spent the most time with got eliminated very quickly. I might add, didn't even make it to the conference championship.
Yeah.
What went wrong? And do you believe Aaron Rodgers can win the big one? Or do you guys have an instance of where you guys had two of the best quarterbacks for like 30 plus years, but only one championship uh, on their resume?
Well, I think there's always more than one issue. I mean, it's hard to really point it at one. I mean, I think football is one of those great team activities where it takes everybody. So I don't think there's one answer. I mean, I feel like one of the long-term answers that they have a problem with right now is that I cursed them when I left, when they didn't re-sign me, and they sent me to Arizona. I told them if they didn't re-sign me and they let me go as a free agent, that they'd never win a championship again. So, and I hold a grudge. I'm a grudgeful person. So,
There you
but
go.
in all actuality, I think it's always pieces, and it's always it's little things here and there. It's little slip ups. You have a mistake on special teams. All of a sudden, you're not where you need to be. You have a drop pass, and you're not where you need to be. You've got the kind of players in Adams and guys in Rodgers to really get some stuff done. And then they've been an efficient team all year. They've done some great things. They've definitely achieved this season, which is hard to watch as a longtime Green Bay guy. As a guy that goes out and roots for him every single day, because Mason Crosby's still there, a guy I was drafted with, and a guy I have a lot of respect for, and want to see have success. And coming up with Aaron, I want to see those guys win championships and have all the success in life. It's hard to see it step out, especially for that fan base. I mean, those fans are as loyal as they come. That's that place bleeds green and gold all day long, and that's what they have to hold on to, and they're expecting big things. It'll be interesting to see what happens this offseason. Obviously, there's concern with Aaron leaving to Denver, and there's probably a real reality of that happening. And I think that there's going to be some reality check for some Green Bay fans that losing two back-to-back Hall of Fame quarterbacks is going to be a tough pill to swallow. But this team will be resilient. The fans will be resilient, and they'll pull through, and they'll find the next thing. But there might be a few question marks that need to be answered before next season starts.
Now, you played under Rodgers. Now, I got to ask you, and you can answer it if you want to, or you don't have to. It's up to you. But I've heard other players come out, ex-players that were around your Super Bowl when you guys won it, about how Rodgers is. What is he as a person in the locker room? Because I've heard like mixed reviews on him from other former players that have been around him that says he's a jerk. That doesn't you say he's a good team player. What was he when you were with him?
Yeah. I think a lot of people say a lot of things because they want to keep themselves relevant, and a lot of people make conversations about people, because they want to stay a part of the conversation. I don't want to be a part of the conversation. I don't need to be part of the conversation. I have a great relationship with Aaron. At least I did when I played with him. Obviously, we're a long way from those days, and we're totally different people. And I was around after his first big contract, and to me, that never really changed him. We spent a lot of time golfing together. We spent a lot of time having dinners together and doing our things. He's never been a boisterous guy. He's never been a fire and brimstone kind of guy. He's never been a dude who wanted to be out in the public eye. He's always wanted to play football, always wanted to be the best he could be at that. Hyper competitive. He's a perfectionist when it comes to the job he wants to do, and expects the people around him to do the same thing. And I'm totally fine with that. I never expected Aaron to be the kind of guy that would stand up in front of a room and charge everybody like a Charles Woodson could, or something like that. But I thought he always led from the front, led by example, expected us to try to meet the standard he was upholding. And I have nothing but respect for him. Now, who he is after 10 years from now, when when we won our championship, and or 12 years actually from when we won our championship, and hundreds of $1 million in contracts since then. And we don't connect. We're not we're not Facebook friends.
Right.
We don't catch up on weekends, but I still have fond memories of our time together. I still try to see him whenever I come in town for a game, to at least catch up a few minutes before the game. But that'll change if he leaves too. So I've got nothing but respect for the guy. But what he does in his personal life, or what it looks like off the football field, I have no idea anymore. And I'm not going to try to pretend I do, because again, I'm not trying to get my own show, or I'm not trying to be on the next NFL primetime network television podcast or show, or whatever it might be.
I actually have a question for you. I believe it or not, on one of my comments, first one since I've had this. They wanted me to ask you, have you had any thought into joining the Boise State football staff?
Well, I actually am part of the Boise State football staff in the way that I represent the varsity B. I'm back working for my alma mater now. I work for our alumni department, and I handle all of our varsity athletes that have come and gone out of Boise State. So I handle every single sport. Obviously, I have a special knack for football, and a special love for that, because it's what I played, and I have a special connection to the team, and I have kind of unfettered access to it. Obviously, my friend is now the coach, Andy Avalos, and he's allowed me to spend time around the team and be back around the program, and try to mentor some of those guys, and have an effect on their life in a positive way, and speak from a player's perspective. But I'm no coach. I learned a long time ago that not all great players make great coaches, and I sure as heck wasn't a great player. So that it doesn't mean I'm going to be a great coach. And those guys work insane hours. Those guys put in so much effort. They give everything they've got to the organization every single day. And if Andy Avalos called me up tomorrow and said, I need you to be the offensive line coach, or I need you to be a special teams coach, or I need you to coach DBs, or we're not going to make it as a team, then obviously I'll show up and go to work, because I'll do it for Andy, and I'll do it for this organization. But right now I'm in a great role, a role that Andy and our new athletic director asked me to be a part of, and support the team in this way. And I'm loving it. And I'm loving being around the team, and I'm excited for the direction the team's headed, and I'm excited to see what they get done next year.
So now, currently back to the Packers. Now, do you see a scenario? I know Devontae wants his money.
Yeah.
And he deserves it. He's a number one receiver. You see, if the Packers don't give him that, do you see him going wherever Aaron goes, because of their relationship that they have?
Well, I think that's a double-edged sword. I think that a lot of guys will go where the money is, and a lot of guys will go, everybody's career's only so long, and everybody's one injury away from ending that. A big thing is championships, and a big thing's money. And you got to kind of make the decision where you want to, do you want to win championships? You want to be in a place to win championships, or you want to be in a place to cash checks? And both those options are possibilities in Green Bay, and both those possibilities, options are possibilities elsewhere. You look at what the Los Angeles Rams did this year. Right. They put all their chips to the middle of the table, and they spent the money, and they brought in the players they needed, and they're standing on the cusp of a Super Bowl. And there's plenty of pundits out there that'll tell you that should be a walk in the park, and they've pretty much guaranteed themselves a championship this year. So, Adams will have to make the decision on what he wants to do to take care of his family and to take care of his own career, and what he wants his long-term career look like. Obviously, he's trending towards a Hall of Fame type career, and he wants to be that kind of guy. And you need the right people around you to have those kind of careers. You need the right quarterbacks. You need the right positions. And he may feel like he can do that in Green Bay, and he may be just leveraging himself to get a few bucks, or he may be in a situation where he says, I'm going to follow my guy, and I'm going to go where I want to go. And he knows what he gets with Aaron. So, but then again, depending on where Aaron goes, they've got to write that check too, and they've got to bring him in. So, I think there's a lot of things up in the air. I don't think Green Bay is going to let them both just walk right out the front door. I think they're going to make a push, and they're going to see what they can do to keep them around, because, no matter what anybody says about Green Bay, they still want to win championships, and they still know what it takes. And I think they did a lot this year that was unexpected out of them, out of the usual role that, their GM and their president fills. They kind of went some different directions, and they worked with Aaron. So, I'm not saying the relationship's lost there. I don't know. I don't speak for Aaron, and, I'm not in that room anymore. But I would say that they'd be dumb to just let him walk out the door. I think they'll make a push, but they've also got to decide what they want to do with Love. So there's a lot of question marks on the Green Bay front, and a lot of them are going to have to be answered probably in the next couple of months.
Yeah, this is going to be my last question to you on that too. I got to ask you, do you think it's a management thing why Rodgers is contemplating retirement? Like, it's like basically like a whole another Favre scenario. Do you think it's that too? Is that he, even though he says publicly he's happy now with he's happy with management, I don't think he is, because they've gotten rid of everything that he's wanted and had to
Mhm.
stay there, that he's helped him along the way. So do you think it's also a part of management why he wants out?
Well, I think everybody's got to say what they've got to say in front of the media, and everybody's got to, their tagline to read off. I think obviously management has done some things that he's approved of this year, but he's had some longtime complaints about the way management's been handled. I think it's very public. Everybody knows those. Everybody knows those complaints, and everybody has to kind of look at again what they want their career to look like and what kind of flexibility and freedom a team's going to give them. And when you're in a position like an Aaron Rodgers or a Brett Favre, or you feel like you're the guy on the team, and you feel like management should have a larger impact on decisions made on a day-to-day basis, because it not only affects your career but affects the way the organization is ran, and the ability for you to go out and be competitive every single year. I can understand where guys come from. You see these perennial teams that stay at the very, very bottom, and you watch great players kind of carry along a career there for a long, long time, being very successful in their own right, but not successful as a team and not in a place to win championships. And a lot of guys feel like their time is wasted, their prime is wasted. And we all have a very small window in this in the league, except for Tom Brady. Every one of us has a pretty short window. So it's one of those things where you want to go out and be effective, and you want to go out and compete at the highest level for as long as possible. But when you see your window open, you got to find a way to get through that. And I think that those frustrations can come out in management decisions for sure, and team decisions. And what he says to us and what he says behind closed doors is probably two very, very different things. But again, he has to say what he has to say because he has to be in front of the cameras, and the rest of us don't.
Right, right. So you were drafted out of Boise State, 2006, round 2. You were picked 47. Um, did you think you were going to go higher in the draft, or did you know you were going to be at where exactly you were going to be drafted at?
I was pretty much slotted where I was going to be right, at. I knew that probably the highest I was going to go was the very end of the first round, probably in the 30th, the 32nd pick. There were some groups there that needed an offensive lineman, and I could probably go as low as the top of the third. I'd met with a lot of the teams that needed offensive linemen that year, and had gone out and done private workouts and kind of knew the competition and knew the other offensive linemen in the draft that year, and had competed against a few of them, and had gone out and gone to the combine with a few of them, and traveled around and worked out with a few of them. So I knew I was going to be right in that mix. I was just excited to be drafted. I was a kid from North Pole, Alaska, with luckily no student debt, but a new wife and a bunch of credit card debt. And, I was just looking for a leg up, and, I didn't know if I'd last in the NFL for more than 15 minutes, let alone 9 years. So it was one of those things where I was just excited for the opportunity. There was kind of 2 or 3 teams that I had kind of circled on that I thought I had the best opportunity to go to. And the funny thing was, Green Bay wasn't one of them. Green Bay wasn't the place I thought I would end up. My interview went well with them, but I never went out for a private workout. They came out to me and worked me out a few times, but my interview wasn't one of those things that was, overwhelming, where they were like, oh yeah, we really, really want you. They kind of kept everything real close to the chest. There was other teams that I thought had a bigger interest, and I thought I would end up. And in all reality, they had just kind of kept it quiet. And I was one of the guys that they had circled on their board, and I was fortunate enough to go out there, and I feel blessed for it every single day. It was probably the best situation for a young guy like me to go to a team like that and go to that historic place and be part of that organization, and especially the veterans that I had the chance to come up with, the Mark Tauschers of the world, the Chad Cliftons of the world, and Scott Wells's that helped teach me the game at a pro level and make the adjustment. I was still learning what it took to be an offensive lineman at that point, and those guys helped me and supported me and taught me everything I needed to know about football.
So, as you were saying, you went through the combine and you were drafted where you were at. What was it? What exactly what combine did you have to? Was it the same as the other players as an offensive lineman? What drills did you have to do during the combine as an offensive lineman?
We do pretty much the exact same drills as everybody else. It's everything you hear: the bench press and the shuttle drill and the L drill and the vertical test. And then we do a few more things. We do a few drills that pass hitting drills and stuff like that you'll kind of work through, and you work through a different kind of set of mental tests. And each team has its own opportunity to kind of meet with you. Things were different back then than they are now. And from what I've heard, obviously I haven't been to the combine in a long time, but you're there for medical tests, and you're doing body scans, and you have individual meetings with every team that wants the opportunity to meet with you, and they can, run you through the ringer of, physical tests or mental tests, or, you're sitting down and you're meeting coaches and you're talking to offensive coordinators and you're kind of selling yourself and you're kind of saying, hey, here's who I am. This is what I can do. The numbers are the numbers, but here's my film. And then they ask you a bunch of questions. They're interviewing you about, certain opponents and certain games and why you reacted a certain way or why, maybe you failed here or why you succeeded here. They're testing you for a million reasons because obviously they're investing millions of dollars into guys and they're trying to find the right guy that's going to fill their role. And I tried to go out and just sell myself as exactly who I was, kid from North Pole, Alaska that just wanted to come out and be a teammate and try my butt off and make myself available. And I feel like I fulfilled that role and did exactly what I said I would do when I got to the NFL.
What was your most difficult task, would you say, as an offensive lineman, besides being blocked, trying to block defensive linemen? Was it did you guys have like a fear in your head? I don't know, what goes on through a mind of an offensive lineman?
Well, I think everybody plays with a certain amount of fear in the fact that you're always playing in the unknown. You have a play and you know what you're supposed to be doing and you know the role and you have all these keys to what's going to happen based on what linebackers do or what safeties do or what defense shows up or all of those things are unknowns when you're walking up to the line of scrimmage and you're getting ready to put your hand in the dirt and you're waiting for the defense to do what it's going to do. And then they have to factor in the talent of the man across from you and what is he capable of doing? You face the J.J. Watts in the world. You face, in my days, the Tommy Harrises of the world, the Sean Rogers of the world, the Williams twins out of Minnesota. I faced great defensive lines. I think there more than anything, there's just the fear of unknown as you wait to see if things unload and you fall back on your training and you wait for a guy to be in front of you and how he's going to react. I think that's where the fear lies, but that's where the excitement lies. That's where the competition is. I think, it's a rare thing in sports that you get to measure yourself every single day and you get to look in the mirror and, say whether you won or lost. I think that's something that not everybody gets to do and not everybody's blessed to have that opportunity to get to measure themselves so definitely. And it was one of the things I loved the most about the NFL. I loved the competition. I loved the chance to go out and measure myself against another person physically and mentally. And I loved being able to come home and know whether I won or lost. And not every day I won. I had plenty of games that I wasn't the better competitor, but I had more games that I was. And that's a good feeling because you know how to go from that and go back and go to work and do it all over again. So I don't think there's really a fear of any one thing. It's the fear of the unknown and everything.
So name your top 5 defenses that you faced that you had trouble with.
My entire conference was probably my 1 through 3, facing the Chicago Bears and the Minnesota Vikings and the Detroit Lions at the time that I was playing was extremely tough. The NFC North was extremely tough at that time. Guys like Tommy Harris and Sean Rogers and the Williams twins and Jared Allen and, Corey Redding and guys like that were just extremely tough. I got to play against talented guys like Haloti Ngata. I got to play against San Francisco. I played against some of the great defensive lines. I got to see Ndamukong Suh when he first got in the league. I got to play against guys like J.J. Watt. There's so many dudes out there, and there's so many dudes that are so talented. And those are the guys that you kind of circle on the calendar that you're like, man, this is going to be a work day. But those are the ones you look forward to. The ones that always scared me were the guys you'd never heard of, guys that had been in the league for like 2 years or 3 years that were trying to make their mark that you knew whether it was the first quarter or the fourth quarter were going to give you 100% every single down. And you could be up by 30 and this guy's out there trying to embarrass you, or you could be down by 30 and this guy's trying to embarrass you. Those are the guys that are scary, with the pros and with the dudes who are the all-time greats. You kind of knew what you're getting every single down, but with those guys, those other guys, it was always a wild card. You didn't know what dude was going to show up for that down. He may be a garbage player for 14 downs, and then on the 15th down, he embarrasses you and he hurts your quarterback. So those were that's where the fear rises up. But the guys I listed off, those are the legends. Those are the dudes that'll eventual Hall of Famers or eventual their team Hall of Famers, or they're all pro guys. Those were the fun ones and the ones I looked most forward to because it was a huge challenge to go out there and try to win games against those guys.
Is it true what they say about the rivalry? I mean, I don't see your division that much because I'm a Chargers fan, and plus I live here in the Tampa area, so I only see NFC South. Yeah. But is it true what they say about your rival, the Chicago Bears? Do you guys literally hate the Chicago Bears, and do they hate you, vice versa?
I think those communities hate each other. I think the rivalry is real in the fact that like you when you show up, you're born into that situation. You learn that rivalry right away. Do I think it was like the 60s, 70s, and 80s? No. I mean, I think we play a different game now than we played back then. I don't think we're allowed to treat each other the way those guys were allowed to treat it. You know, and there's probably a lot of people who watch your podcast or watch the NFL that wish we'd go back to those old days. And as an offensive lineman, I'm kind of with them. I'd love to have some of those old rules back. Yeah. And, you know, those rivalries were deep. And, you know, you look at some of those legends that played during those times. It was great. But I don't think in the sense of winning and losing, it's any different. Like everything is still on the line and everything is important. And you kind of circle those games every year and you say, all right, we got to win these because these are the ones that get us the playoffs. These are the ones that put us in a position to have success every year. And then you know what it means to your fans. You know what it means to a Green Bay Packer to have to go into Chicago and sit in those stands, or to go to Minneapolis and sit in those stands, or go to Detroit, for God's sake, and sit in those stands. And you know how much it means to them to be able to walk in that place and walk out with a victory, or, you know, to have one of those guys come to your place and take one home. So the rivalry is alive and strong, but it's probably not like it was in the 70s. And, I would have loved to have been a part of probably one or two of those games, but I don't know if I would have survived a decade of football during those years.
Very true. But how physical that game was back then. Oh yeah, I agree with you on that one.
No question. Small pads.
So your final year, you win the Super Bowl with the Packers in 2010. What do you remember most about that year besides winning the Super Bowl? I mean, you guys weren't projected to. I mean, you guys made the playoffs, but you guys weren't projected to win it. So, yeah. What was that year like?
You know, it was one of those ones. I mean, we came in as a wild card. We had to claw our way into the playoffs. We had to win games at the right time at the end of the year. We had great players. We had a lot of guys around us. We had like guys like Charles Woodson that came in and made plays. We had just leaders. We had the kind of guys that just wanted to show up and compete. And we had some things go our way. We had balls bounce our way that you needed. And I think that winning the Super Bowl is a huge chunk of luck and a huge chunk of skill and a huge chunk of just being in the right place at the right time, all kind of smashed together. You know, not the talent, the most talented team doesn't always win. The best team doesn't always win. And that's the great thing about football. You get one shot every Sunday to go out there and compete. It's not the playoffs of baseball. It's not, 7 games. It's not sitting there going, the best team usually is always going to find a way.
Game.
Yep. Yeah. You get one game to go out there. And if you're the best team on that day, that's your chance. And that's what we got. We kind of got to the end of the season. We kind of started doing the math and we looked at what we needed to do as a group to find our way into the playoffs. And our leaders stepped up and said, hey, we're going to do this. And we're going to find a way to scratch out the victories we need. And we're going to come together. And if we can do that and we get hot at the right time, we can do this thing. And we did that. We walked into the playoffs as one of the hottest teams in the NFL at the end of the season. We won the games at the end that we needed to. And we were quietly in the very back of the team that nobody wanted to play. And we had to scratch our way through the playoffs too. We weren't blowing people out. We walked into a hostile place in Chicago to win a game, and we got ourselves in against the Steelers. And it was one of those things where it was still a coin flip at that point. We knew who the Steelers were. They were a lot like us. They were a tough and gritty team, but they had been there. They had more experience. They had the guys that just won championships. They knew what it took. And again, we went in there and dug deep. And again, I'll reference Charles Woodson because he was one of those guys that I looked up to, and he knew what it meant, and he showed me what it meant to be a pro and what it meant to work and what it meant to be the best in the game and still go out there every single week and practice like you weren't, and you went out there to compete. And I kind of looked at him and I said, if he can do that, and he's doing that right now, and that's how much this means to him, there's no reason that I can't be out there as a younger guy grinding every single down and every single practice and trying to be better and giving my everything for this team, because you don't know when it's going to be back. I had the blessing of being coached by Jerry Fontenot, who played offensive line in the NFL for I think 15 years almost. And Jerry sat me down once and we were talking about the playoffs. The first time I missed the playoffs, when I was with the Packers and we didn't win, we lost in the championship game. And
yeah,
everybody was heartbroken. I didn't get it. I was young to the team. I was new. I was like, all right, man, we'll just go back and do it again next year. And he pointed out, man, hey, I played 14, 15 years and, I made it to the playoffs twice in my entire career and never made it past the first round. So you need to realize that these opportunities don't come around, and you got to go out and do what it takes to win a championship now if you have that opportunity, because you might not see it again. And he was totally right, because I didn't. I went to Arizona after that, Miami after that, and I was back to the playoffs one time in 4 more years, and I sniffed the playoffs one other time in those 4 years. So it was one of those things where it's like the opportunities don't come around a lot. And this kind of goes back to the thing we were talking about with Aaron. He obviously wants me in a position where he can go out and compete for championships, because you don't know how many chances you're going to get.
Right. And who knows? Yeah, because what he's getting up there. He's what about 40, close to 40, I think.
Well, yeah, no, I think he's 38 right now, so he's probably bumping up right against that number. But
Yeah.
again, Tom Brady's shown that guys are going to walk right in their 40s and keep doing it now and again with the change in the rules and the way we take care of players now. I think there's more and more opportunity for guys to do it for a longer time than us.
Yeah.
But like we've said before, it takes so much more than just the quarterback. It takes so much more than just the
Right.
one guy. You have to be in the right place, and all the chips have to fall into place, and you got to be there with the chance to grab that ring. And it's one of those things that not everybody gets that chance to even be there, and like Green Bay will look at this window they had and the players that played on this team. There's a whole slew of players on that team that'll never ever get this far in the playoffs again. That's just the reality of the game. There'll be a large chunk of those players that probably aren't even in the NFL next year. It's one of those things where that's just how the NFL works. And they'll be sitting somewhere 10 years from now talking to somebody like you on a podcast, talking about the time they had a chance to win the Super Bowl and had the team and didn't make it past the first round of their, second round of their playoffs. And it's one of those things where it's like, you don't know when your window is going to be, but you better be ready to seize it. You better have the right guys around you to help you go. And then last and not least, you better win that coin toss when that flip comes, because it's a lot of stuff's up for grabs.
So besides your Super Bowl victory, what was the moment you would say was your welcome to the NFL moment?
Oh my gosh, I had tons of welcome to the NFL moments. My first preseason game as a rookie, I was benched. I came in as a second round pick and was expected to start right away. And I had a really good camp. I was doing well, and we actually went to your San Diego Chargers, and we were playing pretty much Hall of Fame offensive line. Our defensive line, Sean Merriman was on the group. There was a bunch of dudes on that group. A bunch of dudes. It was 2006, 2007.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a ton of Pro Bowlers, and we were a young group. And I went out there and I didn't hit a single person in like 22 plays. I think I fell down 42 times, and everybody was going way too fast, and I didn't know what I was doing. I had way too much energy, and I was trying to hit everything that moved like I was in college, and it just doesn't work like that, And all of a sudden, that's a huge reality check for you. And then the second one was probably when I went to my first like primetime game. I played at Philadelphia in Philadelphia as a rookie, and I was out there with Jeremiah Trotter, and he hit me once like so hard, like my head fell off, like my helmet was rolling down the field, and I
Hard
was
hitter he was.
I was run down the field with like no helmet on and literally just trying to stay standing so like I wouldn't fall over and be embarrassed about it. And it was just one of those things where it's like, it's reality checks like that. It's there's certain things that remind you like you're not in college anymore, and like you got to go out and compete. And I had there's probably a dozen things just like that. It's as a rookie and on that move on and on. But you adapt, you overcome, you get faster, you get smarter. The men around you work, and they try to make you better, and you become better as a group. And then one day you're that guy, and the game slows down and it gets easy. And then all of a sudden you get to the other end, and you're the old guy again, and everybody's going fast again. And you kind of have to make the decision, like, are you smart enough, strong enough, or is it time to be done? And I think everybody has to face that moment, and everybody handles it differently.
Now that you said you had your first primetime game, do you remember as a player how many primetime games, or do you remember if it was a primetime game, or did you care as a player? Did you know as a player when it was a primetime game? How'd that go?
Well, when you're a young guy, you cared a lot about it. You do your first Monday night football game, or you do your first Sunday night football game. Those are big time games. Those are huge. The crowd's different. The feeling's different. Playing night football is totally different. And then, but when you get older, you start hating them. You start hating Thursday night football. You hate having a short week. You hate having to stay up extra late. You hate having to play an East Coast game on Monday Night Football when you're not going to be home till 5 o'clock in the morning. All of a sudden you're like, oh, I really, really want to be playing at Lambeau at noon or 1 o'clock. Those are the games you start looking forward to. So, I really tracked them, and I enjoyed them when I was probably in my first 5 or 6 years. I enjoyed doing those. And by the time I was in my 7th and my 9th years, I was like, no, just give me all the nice afternoon games. Let me play some Arizona 1 o'clock in the afternoon games. I can make it home, and then I'm home in time to have a beer and watch the primetime game myself. So you start to kind of get tired of the Christmas games and the Thanksgiving games and that kind of stuff. You just want to go out and play football. And there's something special. There's something truly special about playing afternoon football in the Midwest, like, to go to Lambeau Field and to have an afternoon kickoff. And there's just a different feeling about that. And it's just it's a special thing that I'll always hold in my heart. I'll remember that over the Monday Night Football games, and the primetime games forever.
Now, how'd you know how'd you know it was a primetime game? Because most of them, the NFL loves to like flex games, especially late in the season. So, how do you guys know as players if it's going to be a prime game?
Well, some are prior announced, but yeah, the flex schedule stuff that's really started happening kind of when I was in the league. Like we started to change a lot, and you'd start to get the flex schedule, and you would know ahead of time. We would get a warning that like, oh, hey, there's a chance based on this, this, and this that our game can be flexed, and you're kind of watching that and you're kind of paying attention, but you know the parameters it takes. And there's a lot of dudes that want to play the primetime game. There's a lot of people that want to be a part of that. It's more publicity.
Right.
It's more focus on the team. There's a lot of good things about the primetime games for sure, but you kind of knew the things that it was going to take to get the primetime games, and you knew if you were competitive or you were in the top of your division, that by mid-season you were going to start being a part of that package. Usually the big first half of the season, you kind of knew like, hey, everything's going to stay kind of normal until everything starts to shake up with everybody's records. And as people start to go, and you kind of knew your Monday night football game, and here's going to be our Thursday night game and Sunday night game here. But you kind of start about mid-season when everything starts kind of getting laid up and everybody starts having conversations about the start of the playoffs and all that kind of stuff, that's when the flexes were going to start happening. That's when you had to kind of start getting ready. And all you were hoping for was that when you were getting flexed, it was going to be a home game, because you don't want to get stuck on the road, fly out there early, and then to be stuck in a hotel for 5 extra hours waiting for your game to get flexed. And I've had that happen. I've had it happen the night before a game where it's like, oh, hey, they're flexing us tomorrow. All of a sudden we're prime time. It's like, ugh. Then you also don't want to be on the other side. You don't want to be the team that gets flexed the opposite direction, because then you're not a good team.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. No.
if they're taking you out of prime time, nobody wants to watch you play football, and that's as lonely a feeling.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Look what happened with the Cowboys a few years back ago, because they had a sorry ass record. Look what happened to them, and they're like top of the line for, well, quote unquote, what Jerry Jones says. They're top of the line. So you think when they suck, they got flexed for, I think, a playoff team or whatever. So what does that tell you?
Exactly. Yeah. You don't want to be the team that gets flexed out of a time slot, because that means nobody's watching your games, and the NFL is doing it because you can't draw any fans. So, yeah, you want to take your primetime games and you can get them, especially if you're a middle tier team.
Now, were you guys a part? Because I hear broadcasters say this all the time. The pregame, whatever they do before they actual broadcast, they have like a meeting or production meeting or whatever with the teams. Now, do you guys actually get to talk with the announcers before the game?
Yeah, some of the guys do. I mean, it kind of depends. Like if they're, I'm a kid from North Pole, Alaska, right? So every Christmas, around the Christmas season, like you're always going to be doing specials about Daryn Colledge and Christmas and Santa Claus and the whole 9 yards, right? So in those, before those games, if they're looking for something or they're looking for a feel-good piece or they're going to do whatever, you might sit down with the production crew. You may sit down with those guys and have a conversation. John Madden was always famous for that back when he was doing it, that he would have conversations with a lot of these players and stuff like that. He would meet the night before the game with them, or one of the guys, the commentators, is like, hey, he's going to meet with Aaron Rodgers. And then when they talk in the interview the next day, hey, we sat down with Aaron yesterday and we had a conversation about how he feels about wearing pink while he's out on the football, all these stupid things that you always hear about. But that happens. Like these guys have sit downs with players all the time to talk about stories or talk about something that's going on in their life or something that they feel is relevant or feel good about their story for the game the next day. Most guys don't ever have to do it. It's usually always going to be the top tier guys or a guy that has an exceptional game the week before or has some reason, like me being from North Pole, that's relative to something they're doing. But yeah, it happens the night before games quite often. Or if you have the primetime game, it could be the day of in the mornings.
Now, you brought up briefly about Thursday night games. Did you honestly hate him as a player? Because me as a fan, honestly, I hate him. I don't like Thursday night games. I think that's just a money grab by the league.
Yeah.
And it hurts the players, I think, because that's a short week. I know the players union has to agree and all that, but I just don't think it's fair because I think it's just a money grab. How did you take it as a player? Did you like playing Thursday nights?
It's a love-hate relationship with Thursday nights. It's, when I was a young guy, I loved them because for one, it's prime time. You're the only thing on TV and you're going to be out there. Your parents get to see it. Your friends and family are going to get to watch. So as long as you're playing well, it's a great thing to do. But also the other great thing is it's like an extra bye week because you have the long break after it. And as a young guy, it's super easy to be ready by Thursday. Like I can do that. I was ready. When I got to my 7th, 8th, 9th years, I hated Thursdays because I physically was like not sure if I'm going to be ready by that time. You're fighting injuries. You're sitting there week 12 or week 10 and you're like, okay, I'm fighting this knee or this elbow or this neck, and you're trying to get yourself ready. And as a guy who never missed football games like I did, I was sitting there watching my kind of my standard bearer, like, hey, I don't miss football games. So like, I've got to find a way to get myself ready in time to go play in those games. And the older you get, it's harder and harder to be ready by Thursday. By the end of my career, I was sometimes Saturday night, like, I don't know if I'll be ready for Sunday's game. So it's just one of those things where you kind of got a love-hate relationship with it. But once it's over and your game's done, all of a sudden you're in that quick bye week, that mini bye week, and you get some time off and you get to enjoy some time with your families, and you get to sit down and watch some football, and you get to watch the other competition. You get to watch some guys go out there, and that they're going to be on a shorter week than you, and you now kind of had a 10-day break. That's a great part of it. So like I said, it's definitely a love-hate relationship for it, but I can see how dudes – that have been playing 10 plus years are probably getting real tired of Thursday night football games. But for the young guys, man, they love that stuff. They get to go out in front of their buddies and their family and play football.
It depends on the age. Yeah, I agree with you on that.
For sure.
So now I got to ask you, we've talked about it before we got on air. You're obviously from Alaska, so you're used to the cold. I know it didn't affect you as a player playing in the cold, but if you weren't, say for like a normal player that's from, I say, the West Coast or where I'm from, Florida, how difficult would you say it is to play in the cold with the wind chill, the below freezing? How hard is it as a player?
It's a real tough adjustment for a lot of guys. A lot of guys struggle with it, but most people find out it's more of a mental battle than it is a physical one. So it's one of those things where a lot of guys don't want to hit in the cold. A lot of guys get overdressed for it, and they kind of get stuffed up for it. We have heated benches nowadays. We're a much softer group than we were in the 60s. When the tundra was actually frozen and the fields aren't heated, our field's heated to make sure it actually doesn't freeze. It's got a piping system underneath it to make sure the ground's not actually frozen. It doesn't mean it's not 20 below zero on the field, but at least you're not running around on a rock hard, pavement field and stuff like that. So I really liked playing in the cold, not because I felt any better in the cold. Like, I'm cold just like everybody else. I've done it more often, so I kind of can just deal with it and move on. But a lot of dudes don't like to play, and a lot of dudes don't like to hit in the cold. So as an offensive lineman, that's great, because for one, you're not going to hit me nearly as hard, so I can make it the whole game without getting my bell rung, and I can go out there and smack people that don't want to hit me. And that's definitely an advantage, and you can use it. Playing in the wind and the in the snow is different. But the problem with being an NFC North team is everybody plays in the cold. Obviously Minneapolis and Detroit are in their domes, but they go out to Chicago and Green Bay enough that they know the cold. And I literally tell everybody, like, the coldest game I ever played in my life as an NFL pro was at New Soldier Field. I played there in my second season, and I thought we were going to freeze to death just before the playoffs started. We were down there and it was like 30 something below with the wind chill, and it's going sideways, and Brett is, struggling, and we're all struggling, and we're out there getting our butts kicked. And it's just like one of those things where it's like, when you're not playing well and it's cold, it's absolutely miserable. It can be 20 below, and if you're kicking everybody's ass, then it's super easy to play in the cold. I love it.
Now, how do you handle it as a player? Because you said, like you said, you were around before Brett left.
Mm-hmm.
How did you guys have to handle that season, those seasons when he was contemplating, oh, I don't want to play, or I'm going to retire, I'm not going to play? How did you guys handle that? Because you guys had to get ready for the season, and you didn't know what the heck he was going to do. So what was that like as a player?
I spent my last 2 seasons with Brett. I played 2 years with him, and I thought it was an honor to play with the guy. Like, obviously, Hall of Famer. It was a super awesome experience. And as a young guy, I think you don't have a real perspective of it. You're sitting there watching. You're like, come on, man, this guy's got to make his decision, so we can make his decision, so we can move on, so we can draft a different guy, or we can select a guy, or. Right. And I don't think you get it until you're an older guy and you're the one that's kind of contemplating your own career and trying to decide what to do. And you start to realize, like, what management's doing and what the other players are doing, and that you need to watch out for yourself and all these kind of things. And, I think as a young guy, I kind of maybe held a grudge to that, but also I had a relationship with Aaron at that time already. And I'm sitting there like excited for my guy to get his opportunity and to go out and do things. And I think, then when all of a sudden, when I was 35 years old and I was sitting there in the league and I was trying to decide what I was going to do, if I was going to come back and play a 10th season, I guarantee there was a young guy going, is Daryn going to come back and re-sign, Miami, or am I going to get my chance finally to go out there and play and earn my money and have my window? So I tried not to do that. Once I made the decision that I didn't, I only took about 30 days to decide whether I was going to retire or not. And I made the announcement because, I remembered what it was like, and I didn't want a kid to have to wait for his opportunity like I did. But At the time, it was what it was. You were part of the drama. And I think the most annoying part of it really at that time was having to answer the media questions about, like, is
Right.
Brett
I
coming back?
agree.
And I'm like, I don't know, man. I've been here like 15 minutes. Like, the dude's been doing this for like the last 3 years. Like, I thought this was like your annual thing. I thought it was like watching the leaves change. Like, is Brett going to come back or not? Like, I really wasn't thinking about it. So having to answer the same question, 10 times a day for 10 weeks is like, okay, that gets kind of old. So I was more like, hey, make the decision, dude, just so I don't have to answer the questions about it. But, I got it more when I was an older guy, and, my relationship with myself as a player was different then. So, you kind of learn, and your perspective changes on the whole thing. And then all of a sudden you're the guy trying to go through the same thing. Like, do I hang on, or am I going to be a has-been,
So after your Super Bowl year, like you said, you became an unrestricted free agent. I know you said you wanted to stay in Green Bay and you went on to the Cardinals. Why do you think the Cardinals did not want to keep you after it looks like you spent a couple years with them? Why do you think they didn't want to keep you? Was it did they have somebody new behind you? What do you think was their reasoning for not wanting to keep you?
The Cardinals or the Packers?
Cardinals.
Well, I think the Cardinals was probably the exact same reason as the Packers. It always becomes a money issue. I had a contract there that was very nice, but they had an opportunity to draft Jonathan Cooper out of North Carolina, who was expected to be one of the next sure things in the NFL and was going to be an All-Pro every single year and was a ticket to a Hall of Fame, and he was going to be a lot cheaper choice. But he got injured in his first camp, and they were able to keep me around for one more year. And then I think they thought he was healthy, that they thought that he was going to come in and do the job and could do it for a lot cheaper and could probably do it better than I could. So it was just one of those things where they had to make a business decision. And, I told them the same thing on the way out the door as I told the Packers, like, you guys won't win a championship if I'm not here. So, same thing I tell, everybody, but it's one of those things where they made a business decision. They felt like they could get the same, if not better, talent for a lot less money. It's the same negotiation we all make. Like the NFL, you learn very quick is a business. I'm still connected to that organization. I'm still friends with the GM who theoretically fired me. Like, I still stay in touch with him and all that kind of stuff. You try not to take those things personal. It's one of those things where that's just part of the business and that's part of doing the job. I would have loved to stay there. I loved the organization. I loved my time there. I would have loved to finish the last 2 years of my deal. I planned on retiring after those 2 years were up anyways. I had already kind of circled on my calendar that I wanted to leave the NFL no later than 10 years anyways. It was one of those things where I wanted to leave healthy and feeling good. And I was really hoping I was just going to finish out my contract there and spend 5 years with the Packers and 5 years with Arizona. But it doesn't work like that. You don't always get those choices, and they moved on and they made a different decision. And, because they made that decision, they were forced to make another decision down the road. And that's just kind of what we all have to do. And they're no different than us, but, I respect the organization and decisions they had to make. Same as when I walked out of the door in Green Bay. I was replaced by a young, offensive lineman named TJ Lang, who ended up being a Pro Bowler and an
Oh yeah, yeah.
extremely good guard. And, I've got no resentment towards TJ. I love TJ and I loved watching him have success. And it was awesome to watch him do. And, he was the first person to say that I helped him along the way and taught him something. And I'm like, I watched him play and I'm like, I don't think I taught you a single thing, man. I think you're just a stud. And he was a great player for the Packers and did a lot of things for him. And they were super lucky to have him. And they got him for a few years for a hell of a lot cheaper than they were going to have to pay me. And it was probably in the long run, a great decision for them. Along with Josh Sitton as their other guard.
Now, the two divisions, unfortunately, you played for the last of your career, the Cardinals and the Dolphins,
Yep.
had a dominating team in the division. You had the NFC West at the time, who was dominated by the Seattle Seahawks.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time of the AFC East, at the time you played, you had Tom Brady, obviously, with the Patriots.
Yeah.
How difficult was it knowing the fact when you played for those two teams, you could not really get over the hump because those two teams dominated the hell out of you guys division-wise. Like, every time you guys would face each other, they dominated.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the Arizona Cardinals was probably not quite as dominant. I think the NFC West at that time was extremely, like I left the NFC North at the time when it was one of the best, and then I fell in the NFC West when it was one of the best. San Francisco was an extremely talented team at the time. LA was doing a great job. We were we were competitive as all heck, and Seattle was doing a great job. And it's one of those things where it's like you're part of like this cool new division, and obviously Seattle was one of the ones that was the darling of that division, but they were by no means just going to run us over. I don't think it was the same dominance level as like the Patriots were. You know, we had a couple seasons there where we were mixed up in the playoffs and we had a chance and things didn't go our way and injuries and you kind of miss your window. And they were, you know, you knew that they were probably going to be right near the top, but you know, we were going to battle out of San Francisco to see if, you know, if we could find a way to get in ourselves. So it's one of those things where you're like, you're kind of watching that and you're part of that and it's super competitive. You know, the one thing about going to Miami is it was an awesome opportunity because my coaching staff from Green Bay was there. It was an easy transition for me to go over there and to play in what I thought was a really fun division. Like I thought it was awesome. And it was often an opportunity to play the Patriots and to face a challenge like Tom Brady. And you circle that on your calendar and you say, okay, that's, you know, the terrible thing about being the top team in, you know, in the nation is that everybody's got you circled on their calendar and you're going to get everybody's best effort. And we did, you know, I was only a Miami Dolphin for 1 year and we split with them. They came down to our house and we beat the brakes off them. And then we went up there and they beat the brakes off of us. So, you know, you make it competitive. And again, like you and I said earlier, like it's one game, it's one opportunity. And the best team is not always going to be the team that wins that game. It's going to be whoever wants it more and gets the ball to bounce their way a few times. And, you know, that year, I think we finished up 8-8. We were in the mix, and there was a lot of games that we had a chance to do a little better. And it's fun to watch Miami this year have a little more success and, you know, get it kind of turned around about mid-year this year. And I still root for all three of those teams. You know, I still watch the Cardinals and the Dolphins and the Packers regularly and root those guys on, those organizations on.
Now, I know obviously you still follow it, so I got to ask you now. Let's talk a little Super Bowl here. Who do you got? What do you see the outcome? Give a little game plan. What does the Rams need to do to beat Bengals? What does the Bengals need to do to beat the Rams? Give us a little insight here.
Well, luckily for me, you know, we have alumni on both teams, so no matter what, this is a win for Boise State. So we're excited. I'm going to take the Rams to win it, like the first team to have a home game for the playoffs, you know, for the Super Bowl ever. And I think that they have a chance, and I think that they've done everything they needed to do this year. Their ownership pushed the chips to the middle. They brought in the guys, they brought in the talent, they surrounded their quarterback with the right guys, and they built a hell of a defensive line. And I would want no part of that defensive line. I've faced defensive lines that are like that, and those are the kind of defensive lines that keep offensive lines up at night. Now, the great thing is the Cincinnati Bengals know that the chips are all stacked against them. They get to be the dog in the corner, and they get to come out. You know, Joe Burrow is an extremely exciting quarterback to watch. The offensive line is expected to get dominated by the Cincinnati Bengals, and they get to make a rallying cry out of that. You know, everybody expects them to not do well, and they are going to be able to sit in their locker room, and they're going to be able to say we're the underdogs, and everybody's against us, and we're doing this just for us, and that is a huge motivator, and that is a huge X factor in a lot of games. There's going to be some definite confidence on the Rams side of the ball. There's going to be some definite confidence that they're expected to win this game and to go out doing things. And that puts a lot of pressure on them as a team and puts almost no pressure on the Cincinnati Bengals. They get to go out there and freewheel it and, you know, throw it from the back of their own end zone for all intents and purposes and go out there and take chances. And that makes for an extremely dangerous team. So if I'm with the pundits and I had to put my money on it, which I'm not allowed to as a university employee, I would probably slide a few schmeckles over towards the LA Rams, but I'm definitely not counting out the Cincinnati Bengals. And I'm excited. I hope the Super Bowl is half as good as our playoff games have been this year because they've just been exceptional to watch this last week, and it's been a blast. So I've got my fingers crossed for the exact same thing for the Super Bowl.
Now, do you see Jimmy G leaving next year? Do you see Trey Lance taking helm as quarterback?
You know, I got no idea what those guys are doing out there. I think Lynch has done a great job with that team, and he's made some great decisions with that organization. I think everything's always up in the air every single year, man. There's almost nobody out there that I circle and go, that dude's a sure lock to be in that place for another year, especially when it comes to that position, and especially when it comes to that team with that position. So it's one of those things where things can change all the time. They've got a solid defense, and I think they're going to continue to build around that, and they've done a great job of building that. And they've got a few offensive weapons now. So if Jimmy G leaves, I mean, I think there's a lot of people that kind of say, you know, they kind of give him that moniker, you can't win the big one and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, that's hard to say. You know, I've seen talented quarterbacks, lose a lot of games in a bad situation. And, I was a part of an organization in Miami where Dan Marino played for a long time and didn't win a championship. So that man's a Hall of Famer and one of the best dudes I've ever had the chance to meet. So it's one of those things where, you got to find your opportunity and take it. And, luckily I have no affiliation with those guys and I have no personal relationship with Jimmy, so I don't have to worry about it at all. But, as a fan of other teams within that division, I hope they yank him out and they do something totally different, and they have no way to recover from that either. So
there you go. So now I got to talk about, it's a touchy subject for some players. Hall of Fame. You say you're not a good player, but your career says it differently. I mean, you played about between 150 to 160 games. You had a
yeah.
decent career. I don't know what it is for linemen or how they do that for Hall of Fame, but do you think it's possible that you could possibly get into Hall of Fame? Because I don't know what the criteria is for linemen. I really don't.
The criteria for an offensive lineman to get in the NFL. If they stopped letting anybody else in and they said, we've got to bring in 2 dudes from Alaska, and Mark Schlereth and I continue to be the only 2 dudes, I think, from Alaska in the NFL. I think Cooper was out there for a while. There might be 1 or 2 floating around. Then maybe they end up having to draw my name out of the hat because they're out of other people. But the NFL Hall of Fame, no, man. I made the Alaska Hall of Fame. That was awesome.
There you go.
And, and one day, if I donate enough money, maybe Boise State will make me a Hall of Famer. But an NFL Hall of Famer, no, man. I had a great career. I had a blast. I played with giants. I really did. I had an awesome experience with the guys I played with. But I matched their ability, and I survived, and I hung on, and I was a try-hard guy, and I was a teammate. I showed up for every game. I only missed 2 games in my entire career. And those were the things I tried to be, but I knew who I was. I was never a hugely dominant player. I was a smart player, and I was an athletic player, and I out-tried guys, and I played the game in a smart way. But there's been much more dominant players than I am, and much more deserving dudes that still aren't in the Hall of Fame long before me. So I'm not staying up at night. But if they ever have like a Hall of Fame for like try hard guys, I'm in, like, for sure. That's Daryn Colledge, #1 try-hard guy for NFL this year, for NFL Hall of Fame.
What about the Packers Wall of Fame? You think they might put you up there because you won?
No, they need shoot. No, man. I played with dudes on my own team that were better than me at that aren't even up there. The Chad Cliftons, the Mark Tauschers of the world. Those guys are the Hall of Famers, and Mark Tauscher's he's a Hall of Famer, Packer Hall of Famer, and I believe Chad is now also. And guys like TJ Lang and guys like Josh Sitton, they had more storied careers than me. Again, if the Packers have a wing in the corner where they need all-time try-hard guys for the Packers, then they can hang up the old 73 jersey there, and I'll happily show up with a case of Leinenkugel or a case of Spotted Cow, and we'll all drink to the try-hard guys. But no, I'm no Hall of Famer. I'm excited for the opportunity I got to be, and I'm excited for the championship I won. That meant more to me ever than what my career was going to be, or if I was going to ever be a Hall of Famer or one of those guys. Man, I was just proud to be part of an organization and a team that won a championship, because I wanted to be the ultimate teammate. That was my only goal my entire career. I wanted to be a dude that guys could rely on and knew were going to show up and do their job, and to go out with a group of men and win the ultimate prize. I got a feeling there's a lot of dudes that have done a lot of things in their career and have been Hall of Famers that wish that they could hold that ring, and I get to.
Now, did you ever get the chance to hold the trophy? Because I hear it's 7 pounds. So did you ever get the chance to hold it yourself?
Yeah, I got to actually spend a lot of time with it. It actually got lost on the bus for a while, and then it was in my seat, and I ended up taking a nap. We were all partying and riding home in the bus or the airplane. I think it was with me in the airplane or something like that. And I got to spend like an hour with it just by accident, and to be around it. So it's one of those things where I'm surprised the trophy hasn't disappeared. I always thought it'd be fun if it was like the Stanley Cup and everybody got to spend like a week with it, or five days with it.
Those stories are crazy. I know, I've heard.
Yeah, I thought that'd always be fun, but I think they don't think it'd ever come back. But I'm like, if a bunch of hockey players can get their trophy back, then I think football players could figure it out too, because those dudes party way harder than we do.
So besides from, say, since you're now with Boise State, like you said, you're part of it. I coach, and I say, even though you say you're not, but you're part of it. I guess you would say part of it. If you weren't doing that, would you say you'd probably be? What would you say you'd be doing? Would you be doing something with the NFL? Would you be announcing, or would you be doing something else?
If I wasn't with my team right now, I don't know what I would be doing. Actually, when I retired out of the NFL, I took 6 months off and then I joined the military. I was not, I've been in the Idaho National Guard here for the last 6 years. It's what I've been doing with my life. I've gotten a tour through Afghanistan. I've gotten to do search and rescue here. It was a great part of my career. This is my next career. This is kind of the next chapter. I'm wrapping up my military career here in Boise State, knew that and saw an opportunity and offered me this job. And thank you. And I took that opportunity and now I'm running with it. So I'm right where I need to be, doing exactly what I need to be doing. And this is an exciting new chapter in my life. I don't try to plan out, too far in advance. I don't try to make, anything it's not. I'm all about the experience. I'm all about a new opportunity, and I'll do this for the next few years, and then maybe I'll find something else to do. And who knows what I'll be doing? But it's one of those things where Daryn Colledge is literally just looking for the next experience down the road, and excited to be in whatever place I'm at right now. So maybe I'll get involved in some of the NFL. Maybe I'll get involved in some commentary. Maybe I'll start running a podcast. Who knows? Or maybe I'll be flying airplanes for Delta. Who knows what I'll be doing? But
podcast. Oh, listen, there you go. How about that?
Exactly.
It's
but
amazing.
They'll find me.
There you go. So my last question to you before we hang it up for tonight, I got to ask you. This is I have to ask you because everybody is asking this. I could care less, but I just got to ask it anyway. Who do you think the best quarterback is in the NFL today, barring if Brady does officially announce he does retire?
Well, the best quarterback in the NFL would be probably the quarterback who's playing this weekend, right, or playing the Super Bowl. I mean, I think the other 30 quarterbacks right now would probably rank themselves below the two guys who get to sling it out over the weekend. But
I think for your top five. How about that? Top five.
My top five quarterbacks out there in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
I don't. It's hard to make those decisions. I don't. It's like I would take one guy in a certain game and I'd take another. I mean, I think obviously Tom Brady and those guys are at the top. I think Aaron Rodgers is one of the smartest quarterbacks around. I'm super excited about all these young quarterbacks, man. Patrick Mahomes is a blast to watch. So is Joe Burrow. These guys are, Gebert is extremely talented. Like there is so much young talent in the NFL right now at the quarterback position. I think that it's been dominated by guys like Aaron Rodgers and guys like, Tom Brady and guys like Ben Roethlisberger, maybe not this year, but in the past, like we've had these same names for a long time. I think the NFL is falling into a place of very, very good hands. And I'm excited to watch what these quarterbacks can do. I think it's a totally different league than I played when I even played. And, I think the guys watching from the 90s, they don't even recognize the game anymore. And it's one of those things where I think we are all witnesses and we get to be excited and be a part of it. And it's a great time to be enjoying some football, especially if you're on the offensive side of the ball. If you're a defensive guy, just turn away, man, because like it is fast and furious, and it's nothing like the old defenses used to be because they can't play the game the same way. So enjoy some offensive football, enjoy some high-scoring games, and always bet the over. Always bet the over.
There you go. I agree with that one with how high this game is. Yeah, no defense is literally gone. I believe that one for sure. So we got about another minute and a half here. Last question is, what would you define your career in one word? I asked that to all my guests. How would you define your career?
Teammate, I guess. I mean, that's probably the easiest, or try hard. I mean, really, that's what it was. Like I was a guy that just showed up to work every day, and that's all I tried to do. I wanted to be. I literally tell everybody, like, I wanted the coaching staff to walk past my position every single day and go, "Oh, Daryn's here. All right, we got this. Let's move on to the next guy. Let's worry about the next thing." I wanted my teammates to be able to do the same thing. Hey, 73 suited up. All right, we know what we're going to get out of him. We know that position's solid, and that's all I ever wanted to be. I didn't need to be I didn't need to be the most dominant player. I knew who I was as a player, but I knew that if I could show up every single day, that I can make it. I can make the people around me proud. I can make the families and the coaches and everybody that supported me proud. They made a ton of sacrifices for me to get there. So the least I could do is show up for work every single day, and I did that. Like I said, I only missed 2 games, and that was something that more than Hall of Fames and more than championships and all that thing. That's the one thing that I probably hold on to the highest time in my career. Like I showed up for work every single day, almost for 9 years of my NFL career.
Well, there you go. I couldn't have said any better. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I'll send you the link so you can post the episode, like you did for the YouTube version. I appreciate it. You're more than welcome to come on again as many times as you want. I'll stay in touch with you, and you do the same with me as well. And it was fun. I appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you, Brian. Thanks for having me on, man.
Definitely. You stay safe and have a good night. Okay.
Same to you, buddy. Take care.
You too. Bye.